Good day, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Medtech Business Academy, sponsored by our favorite medtech experts. I am Skender Daerti, and today I am joined by my esteemed panelists, Barbara Strain and Tom Hickey. We have the good fortune of being joined by a fabulous guest today, somebody who is a true serial entrepreneur from the world of software to fast food something. I can't wait for him to tell that story a little bit further, and to skiing and athletic equipment to lab equipment and just overall healthcare. But really, the story of what makes our guest so special is really the passion that he embodies. And it's the passion of always being clear with the end in mind. Today's guest is Bob Cooper, who is the CEO of Smoltap. Smoltap, he's going to share with you a little bit about, and we're excited for him to tell a little bit more about it. But what we're really excited to have Bob on today is we feel like in the growth process, in the maturation of medtech companies, so many people get lost in the trees of the process, and they kind of lose sight of what's actually going to move people. And in the interactions that I've had with Bob over the last few months, he never loses sight of the fact that he is heading up a company that has a product that is intended to make a marked difference in patients' lives. And not just patients' lives, the most sensitive patients' lives, the infants, the small kids, the ones that are at the most sensitivity, with the parents who are heightened in so many ways about their care and concern. And Bob never forgets that. And right now, he is creating a tidal wave of momentum in the industry, taking the industry by storm with this product because of that passion. So, Bob, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you on.
Thank you, Skender. Honored to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
So, Bob, tell us first and foremost, what kind of pills do you take every day to embody this passion and showcase it in every which way? Because honestly, you are one of the most energetic and passionate people I've ever seen. And given your decades of experience in taking companies to exit and success, et cetera, and this is your latest venture. And if you had even more passion and excitement in your younger years, I'd hate to see what that looks like, because it's amazing what you do and what you're doing.
Thank you. You know, one of the things that I appreciate that. One of the things about our product, and we'll get more into it, but when my son was about 6 weeks old, he spiked a fever, and we ran into the emergency department, and he had to get a full workup, including an infant spinal tap to check for meningitis. And he's just a strong little guy, and they really couldn't hold him. They had a couple of nurses on him, so they came out to the lobby and they got me. And I ended up being one of the holders of my son, and they kept missing, and we had to admit, and we had to give him antibiotics for several weeks, and it was probably the most awful experience of my life. And I never ever want to have another child or a nurse or a doctor or a tech or a baby ever have to go through that again. So just knowing that we have something that makes it easier for everyone, makes it better for the babies, it's that's what kind of drives me. It really isn't about driving the company to huge success. What it really is it's driving towards making certain that no one ever has to go through that again. It's just a simple process. The nice thing about Smoltap is we're starting to get some data back that we're improving materially the first stick success rates of infant spinal taps using our device.
Bob, it's remarkable, and the personal stories are always the ones that move us the most. Can you provide the audience, so they have a background, a little bit of context as to what Smoltap does, so they can understand what you're doing and how you're disrupting the market?
Great. I wish I had a little device to show you, but if you want to go up and see what our device actually looks like, we're at www.smoltap.com. So we'll leave that aside. Essentially, imagine a very small massage chair that you place a baby in and have a couple of straps around its back and the back of its head. And the device actually tips the pelvis and arcs the back and holds a baby almost like it's being swallowed by its shoulders. And it puts this baby in the very stable, repeatable position with an arc back that opens up the vertebrae between L3 and L4 to make it easier for the doctors to go in and get spinal fluid to test for meningitis. The failure rate is about 50-60% today, and we're trying to march that up, as close to 100% as possible. That's not published data, but we're trying to move it in that direction best we can.
So, Bob, you didn't invent this like you had a vision in the middle of the night or whatever. So, how did you get to know about this, and what can you teach our audience about where you can find your next sort of idea or thing to do?
So I have to kind of defer to the fact that I did not invent the product. Two doctors did at Hasbro Children's Hospital at Brown University. But their story is incredible. Dr. Alverson is a hospitalist. He was a hospitalist at Hasbro, and he was working with a neonatologist, Dr. Robbie DeCruz. Robbie DeCruz is an underachiever. He was an architect in New York City before becoming a neonatologist, and now he's with pediatrics out in Seattle. But he kind of thinks about the world through design. When he thinks about a problem, it's through design. And so one day in 2019, Dr. Alverson was trying to get a tap on a kid. As he said, he macerated his poor kid. Multiple nurses holding, couldn't get the tap right. The nurses were sweating. This one woman had carpal tunnel, and he was just like, that's it. But we've had it. No more nurses holding or people holding babies. We have got to come up with a solution to fix this and get babies in a stable position. So he walked out of the treatment room and he ran into Robbie DeCruz. And Robbie, who's teaching at Rhode Island School of Design at that point, a industrial design medical device class, said, "Hey, Brian, do you have any ideas for my class this semester?" He goes, "I absolutely have an idea for your class." And he started describing, so look, we need to create a chair to hold babies in the proper position so nurses don't have to hold anymore. And so we can have this repeatable, consistent, stable position for babies to be in so that we can improve first stick rates. And Robbie and it was like this explosion between them, like, oh my God, that's a great idea. Let's do it. So 2019, and then they worked on it for 2 or 3 years. We went in and out of the clinic, getting feedback, observing, taking reports, getting clinical data, adjusting the design, improving the design. It took us 1.5 years to get the seat right to actually tip the pelvis. And from there, then we finally launched we actually launched the PHM in the summer of 2022 and got the product in early Q1 2023. Been in market for about 18 months.
So, Bob, you mentioned repeatable too, which I think is a big part of the story, right? Because maybe describe why it's repeatable versus the status quo, right? What clinicians were doing and what they're doing now, and why this takes some of that variability out of it.
Great question. So today, the standard of care is to have in the majority of cases, sometimes they're sitting, but the majority of cases, the baby is lying on its side, and called the decubitus position. And then one nurse, or sometimes two, takes the back of the neck or back of the shoulders and then the rear end, and they take their face basically, and they jam their face in between the knees, the baby's face in between their knees, to expose the spine and open up the vertebrae. And then the doctor goes in and tries to find the right angle when they're sort of side, looking from the side, trying to line up vertically and horizontally. And they take the needle and try to stick it into the spinous cavity to try to gain the CSF. So that fails probably 50-60% of the time. And so it's this awful experience. In fact, there's data out there. There's a couple of papers that have been written to talk about the fact that about 52.5% of the babies where they're unable to get a successful spinal fluid actually get admitted unnecessarily or get admitted. And then a course of antibiotics and then, admittance into the hospital. So it's this it's this awful experience. So that is the standard of care prior to Smoltap. The Smoltap device, because the way it actually is organized, there's a seat. You know what? I'm going to stand up. I'm going to go get it so I can show you. You mind?
Nobody can. Well, okay.
Well, we have video. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
I love it. This is why we have the passion. Look,
We're taking a pause.
in
Going to quick pause here.
in situ passion, right here.
Passion. Sorry about that. I know, Skender, you probably went, oh my God, this guy's out of his mind.
Oh no, I love it.
So here's a Smoltap device. And so you can see exactly what happens with the pelvis and the arcing of the back, creating more space between the vertebrae. We're holding across the shoulders with these arm guards. And it puts this baby in a great position when the hips and shoulders are square to the spine, and allows the doctor to be basically standing and going between L3 and L4. The baby's in this very, very secure and stable position. They're not wiggling around because their legs are in this froggy position and their arms are being held there. And then you're able to manage the airway and give the baby sweeties. So generally they just fall asleep in the chair because it's kind of like a little massage chair. So, but the reason why they're stable is they're being held by these straps and they don't have anywhere to really push and wiggle around. So instead of a nurse having to actually hold this baby who does not want to be squished and wiggling around, the nurses are actually able now just to give the baby sweeties and tend to the baby's care. So I'm not trying to do a Smoltap advertisement, but the idea is that our product is so simple and so straightforward that many doctors are like, I can't believe I didn't invent this. And it solves the problem of the nurses when they hear that there's a tap on the floor, they sometimes they're like go the other direction so they don't have to hold the baby because it's such an awful experience. My wife's a pediatric anesthesiologist, and she said sometimes it takes about an hour just to find someone to hold. And generally, you're trying to find someone with big hands who can really crank down on this baby in the ward. And, it's a workflow problem. It's nurses' backs and carpal tunnel problems create issues when they're holding. It's just awful. So the real target and the real focus is just making sure that nurses and doctors and babies never have to go through this again.
You see, this is why I love the story, right? It is so natural. You sprinkled in some data points, and you did so. Before you said you couldn't do things flawlessly, that was flawless. And you did it flawlessly. You sprinkled them in, but you did it with such passion. And the best thing about this product, and one of the most overlooked aspects of any procedure, is the angst that goes into that, right? Because I'm assuming everybody involved in this procedure is incredibly calm, easy, right? The baby's easy, the parents are easy. You've already talked about how the nurses and doctors are at ease, right? Right. So, but it's the exact opposite, right? This is
beyond stressful. It's
beyond stressful.
I remember walking out of the room with my son and just looking at my wife and going, that is the most barbaric thing I've ever seen. And he's 30.
It's amazing, right? So when you think about that, that's where I think so many people in our industry lose sight of those, not the ancillary aspects. Yeah, the 52%, the 60%, all the rates that you referenced are important. What I think is the most important thing that you referenced is saying we are going to make a procedure better for everybody involved, right? That's the story. The patient, the baby doesn't know whether the procedure went better or worse, right? Either which way, probably still in your chair, they're still going to cry. But at the same token, the angst for the parents, the angst for the caregivers, the angst for the providers that are there, all those other aspects, that's that passion story that I think not only is this product so organically embodied, and you do so as well, but I think that's the mission that so many of our brethren kind of lose sight of, and you do it naturally.
And I'd like to add sort of some of the sort of philosophy around how we think about marketing and how we think about going to market, giving that. When I first joined the company, when Dr. Alverson and Dr. DeCruz and, the team at Nemec had asked me to come in and run the company. We have been looking at investing in the business. My wife was like, this is awful, but what a cool invention. I can't believe they came out with it after we retired. So we went and talked to the doctor about it. But when the tagline for the company was the first and only infant spinal tap solution. And, every company that I've run, some exiting, some not, we spend an inordinate amount of time getting entrenched into the experience. And what does the experience actually look like through the eyes of the user? And what do they think? And one of the early lessons that I learned was, no one cares what you think about your product. No one cares. Like, what you think about it, you, Mr. CEO or Mr. Developer or designer, and no one cares what you think. All they really care about, and rightly so, what they care about is how this affects them. And you have to get rid of your ego and all that stuff and go in through their eyes and look at what their experience is and what they're doing today and how what you have can make what their life better, and the language that you use to talk about it. So the first and only infant spinal tap solution, first of all, no one cares that you're first, and they're probably pissed that you're the only. So that tagline isn't going to work for anyone. So we spent months going into the clinic, talking to people about what they do today. And we realized this is an entire experience. I mean, having a parent bring their baby into a treatment room, having the doctor show up, getting two nurses wrangling the baby's wiggling all over the place, screaming, throwing up, decompensating. Some babies are calm, but generally when they're being smushed into the C position, the decubitus C position, they're not happy and they're pushing against their hands. And so we realized, this is a new way to think about the infant spinal tap experience. So sort of out of the gate, our tagline was around this idea of reimagining the infant spinal tap experience. And so we've had so many nurses and so many doctors come up and say, oh my God, you're right. It's the experience. We're not selling a chair. We're selling a whole new experience where it's calmer, it's quiet, the baby falls asleep, the doctor hopefully gets a first stick, and you're giving the baby sweeties and they're just calm and cool and it's fast. So instead of spending an hour and a half, it's 15 minutes, see ya, and you're out of the room. And that idea that buy my chair because it's awesome is never going to work. It's what you do today is awful and you know it. Try this thing because it'll make your life a lot easier. Your workflow is better. You won't go home and have to have a glass of wine. I mean, this is a wonderful product to make life easier.
Bob, you mentioned something about, that we often talk about with innovators, right? And just in the story here, which was fascinating, but you immersed yourself, the team immersed themselves into that experience. And I'm curious, as it went through the developmental process of developing this product and getting to this point where you're going on market, did you have any aha moments, or did you have any, discovery that you had to do some redesign, go back to the drawing boards, in other words, or was it just a smooth, you came out of the gate and it was right the first time?
Yeah, no. Wow. Great question. So the two doctors that founded this company partnered up with New England Medical Innovation Centers called Nemec. Nemec's sort of genetic code is through a company called Zymedica, which is a medical device design company here in Rhode Island. Do a lot of work, even with not only the hospitals, but also did a lot of work with CVS, and then invented a lot of products that you can find on the shelves of CVS now. So it's a design company. We were put in touch with Nelson Design. Nelson Nelson Product Design, this incredible, product designer, and just went about. And so he started extracting like what size are the kids, how do they fit, et cetera. And so we 3D printed the first model, and it didn't have a floor, and the kids were tipping themselves backwards, and it wasn't wide enough, so it was wobbly. Wasn't a very, the opening wasn't wide enough. There was sort of a sharp turn, so the face wasn't, cushioned enough. So Tom, literally it was 3 years in and out of the clinic and redoing and refining until we finally got a product that's like built like a tank, holds those babies still. It's got a very low center of gravity. It's got a little floor on it so they don't tip back. There's a great opening with a soft transition. The one thing too that was the craziest thing is these straps. They're biocompatible, but one of the things that happened is we had straps that didn't have a fail-safe on it, and this one clinician, won't name any names, put the strap on and then just went and pulled it really tight over the back of the baby's head. We're like, oh my God. So we had to go back to the drawing board on our straps. This took us almost 2 years to design this strap. And what it is, it has this perfect amount of stretch. It's made out of this incredible biocompatible foam. And if you over tighten it, these things go on the pegs on the device. And if you over tighten the pegs, it goes boop and it breaks and goes down to the next level. And so these are single use, they're disposable, and just things like little things like that. Just watching a doctor pull it too tight over the back of a baby's head that ended up going to these, they're same front and back, up or down. They have a little fail safe, they're biocompatible. And it's just things like that that went into this product. There's all these little details that went into it just to make sure that it does exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I know Barbara wants to jump into the question, but I just have to make the point that, so many times we talk to innovators that are afraid to talk to customers before they release, right? But this is so important that you immersed yourself and got all this feedback and went through these redesigns and got to this product. You went through this whole evolution to get to this product. And I think there's some real best practices and lessons learned from that. So sorry, Barbara, but I just wanted to make the point. Yeah, over to you.
Well, it's a good segue because I was going to say something similar, but it doesn't matter if you've got a product or a service or an app or whatever it is, you've got to go through the steps. And Bob has perfectly sort of stated, you've got to know what the end is in mind. It can't be something I put on the back of a napkin because it's what people need. I just know it. But the way they go about it,
right?
No idea. And the thing of it is, if you listen to that timeline, that's 4 years, which is almost kind of quick in a lot of sense with medical devices and things. But I wanted the audience saying, well, it's not going to work for mine because I don't have a product like this, whatever. It's skimming those things that he said are so important. So my actual question to you, Bob, is Skender did sort of say, you've done so many things over time. And my general question is some insights to the audience is, when do you really know to jump in or jump out of a company? Or how do you really look at and observe, I don't think this is really meant for me, and I need to either do something else, or can we get that data? Can we look at things? Can we do things differently? So a little advice along the way.
Sure. Barbara, because I've got about 50 different answers for that question. Can you kind of tighten up? Are you looking?
Sure. Basically, you've been in lots of situations where we can make a company out of this and you jump into it, or you say, after a couple of years, I'm going to jump out because, so that they understand they just don't keep persevering and putting money into something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the easiest way to know to get out of a company is when you run out of money. That's probably that's probably the best solution. So, pretty clear answer on that one. I came in to help commercialize the business. So once we got to a place where we were about to go into tooling, I came in, I spent about almost 3 months really going through, the total addressable market, the serviceable market, what's the global market look like, talking to doctors and nurses, finding out, like, is this really a problem? Having had that experience, I kind of knew it was a problem. I figured it had gotten solved. It's like, oh my God, this didn't get solved yet? Cool. So found out that it's not a huge market. So I know this isn't this multi-billion-dollar market. This is, the pediatric space. And one of the things I love about some of our investors, like the Hood Foundation, John Parker at Hood Foundation, who helps fund pediatric products. We understand that this is it's a problem that needs to be solved. It's not going to be a huge, like, multi-billion-dollar business. It's just going to be a very targeted, very niche product that we're going to end up adding different products to and extending out. So when I looked at how we could take this one product, extend it out through disposable, components of the business, kind of almost like a razor blade, and then go into a smaller device and then a little bit larger device, as well as matrixing that out across the globe. So going into Canada first, and then EU, and then other English-speaking countries around the globe. So really kind of taking a look at it, working it backwards and saying, well, how much capital do I need up front to build the business, to get a balance sheet that's investable? And how much cash flow can I have to actually grow the business, so I'm not having to pull in a lot of money? We've raised less than $1 million in this business, and we're already generating, hundreds of thousands of dollars, thanks to our vice president of sales, already, building this business up. So we're not trying to do it on the cheap, but we're also being really cognizant of the timing of the cash flow of this business. And we're hoping what's going to happen is, and it's starting to happen, we've really focused very hard on the top 10 children's hospitals in the country. And so we have, and then some of the bigger names in the country. So Boston Children's, CHOP, Children's Hospital Los Angeles, the likes of Lurie Children's, DeVos Children's, Wolfson down in Florida, et cetera. If I've forgotten somebody, sorry. But, we're in Charles at Cincinnati. But really focusing on these academic institutions that, will publish, create data, and then use that as a real launching point to validate what we're thinking and what we're saying through actual experience and data by clinicians, by scientists, by people, statisticians that will put together a paper and actually launch it. In fact, Dr. Joe Miller at Children's Hospital Los Angeles is going to be presenting his findings on Smoltap at SPUR, the Society of Professional Interventional Radiologists, at the end of October. So it's those types of things that are starting to happen. So that's how I decide to get in. Deciding to get out is when you realize that your analysis, I have moved out of companies where I realized that the product is a product that's a really cool, interesting idea in search of a problem. I always go back from, there's a real problem and you can generate some revenue off of it, then great. But if you've got a really cool idea and nobody wants it, see ya.
So, but with Bob, I want to talk about that for a second. You've been in a diversity of industries. So based on that, how do you have a nose for what is a real problem, right? It's one thing when you're come up vertically through one industry and you can see, the forest and the trees, but sometimes when you're in sports apparel, healthcare, software, how did you find the problem? How did you know what was real?
Well, the first company that we had allowed me to do what I kind of wanted to do. So I'll leave it at that. And then the diversity, the various industries, been the CEO of Bodie Miller Ski Company, ran a software company that dealt with genomic and proteomic information, working with Pfizer and some others. What that what that kind of allowed me personally to do, and I'll try to extend it out to others, allowed me to do is really kind of realize that there are certain that are kind of these repeatable patterns across any business. And those repeatable patterns are pretty straightforward. Is there a market? Is there a problem? And is our solution something that you can make a reasonable profit on, to generate more innovation within the company? And if any one of those things is missing, don't bother. And I know that's kind of an oversimplification of the process, but it really kind of boils down to do you have something that people really need, and are there enough of them to support a business?
Bob, I got to tell you, the story is really remarkable. And again, I feel like if you brought the same passion at Bodie Miller skis and so.
Well, I was chasing him down the hill, man. I'll tell you what. Wait.
Oh, you're a fast sprinter then. So with that, Bob, we're gonna start to transition because we appreciate you making the time. And I think this story is just so remarkable in so many which ways, and I'll expound upon that shortly. But Barbara, you got some thoughts in wrapping, and Bob will give you the last word on this.
Sure. Well, thanks, Bob, for coming on and willing to share. I didn't think that'd be a stretch for you to do, but I loved how you used one of your journeys to give those key points to entrepreneurs, no matter whether they're new or they've been in the business a while, is, am I doing this? Am I doing that? And you really exemplify what we try to preach all the time and the lessons that we try to teach our audience, and well as what we do in our professional lives. So I want to thank you for that, but keeping all that in mind as you go through with your passion, it's a great combination. Thanks.
Thanks. And one of the things that in this conversation, sort of in the back of my mind, there's this one thing that I can't let this go without. When I take over a company and start the process, I spend an inordinate amount of time also looking for really smart people who are also really passionate, that know what the hell they're talking about in this space, and try to pull them as quickly as I can into the business to help build that business, because there's no way that I could do this without the likes of a Barbara Strain or a Tom Hickey or a Skender. I mean, all three of you have already, helped in the business. They're literally, I was kind of counting the number of people who are involved with this business. I'm the only full-time employee. I have 6 1099s. There are 37 salespeople and 5 distributorships. And throughout history, I've got a regulatory person. I've got my QA people. I've got manufacturing. I mean, literally, there are hundreds of people that have been involved with this business, and every single one of them supporting the same idea. So I feel like I'm just a symphony conductor and letting all the really smart people go about and do what they do. Barbara did our value analysis, and it's the envy of the industry. It's so beautiful. And Tom's running our sales organization, and he's put together, we started out with a sales organization that really, it was wonderful, great sales organization, but their call point wasn't exactly right. They were just a little bit off of our call point, and I didn't really recognize that. And Tom came into the business and he's like, Bob, we got some great salespeople here, but they're not really focused on exactly the call point that you need to focus on in these hospitals. And so we did this. It took a while, but we did this conversion. And now it's almost like we have this turbocharger ever since Tom Hickey came into this business. So it's not me, it's just all these incredible people I've pulled into the business. And I'm frankly, I'm honest about that, because I love working with really smart people. And you guys, it's been great working with each one of you. And Skender, is helping us put together a training program. So sorry to, give everybody props.
Love it.
It's just
Love it.
It's just so much fun running a business with people who are really good at what they do.
Well, it's easy when you've got a passionate leader. So,
Yeah.
Tom, would you care to expound?
Well, first of all, thanks for all the kind words, and it's certainly a project that's been fun working on. But I wanted to touch on real quick, and I know we're at the end of time, but I was just curious, as you immersed into the business, right? There's like one product. Were there any other aha moments that led to potential product line extensions that came out of that? I know we've got about 30 seconds here, but is there a future, and what's going to happen in the near future with this?
Yeah, well, the doctors and the clinicians fortunately made that really easy. So we were like, yeah, there's probably going to be. So we would go in and present it, and we'd have a NICU doctor in the audience or part of the meeting. They're like, can you please make one for the NICU? We're like, okay, good. And then another meeting, we'd have, an OR doc or an anesthesiologist or a surgeon would say, oh my God, can you please make this for 6-month-olds so we can do spinal anesthesia? So we already have the next 4-year roadmap already built for us through the clinicians. I would love to claim that we had this beautiful roadmap process, but it was really just demand from the market. With that, I have done that in other companies where we've had to invent and put together a whole roadmap, but this was just literally clinicians coming to us. So
organic demand's the best kind.
Yeah.
So Bob, thank you again for joining us. As you were talking, one of the things and one of my favorite authors to read as well as listen to in his TED Talk is Simon Sinek, who's most famous for the Start With Why principle. And I just think that you embody that perfectly. And I remember when Tom first introduced the Smoltap concept to me and just said, just go check out their website. Just check out their website. And the amount of people that send referrals, et cetera. But then, sometimes you look at the website, you get underwhelmed. But Tom was so convinced that when I looked at the website, that was going to be all I had to do. And that Start With Why principle, for those that don't know, it's www.smoltap.com, and it's spelled SMOLTAP, just for confirmation. When you go there, you immediately see a procedure in situ. You see it happening. You see it and that's the Start With Why principle. It is immediately moving you. They're not selling you this strap, the cool bending of the strap. That's really cool that you've designed it to that way. And I feel like so many of our brethren start with, check out this polysulfone strap that I made. Check out this cool seat that I made.
They don't care.
Nobody cares. You started off with, let's go right into the procedure, right? Let's go right into showing you firsthand why this product makes a difference. And Bob, I think that's what makes you special. I think that's where we feel fortunate to have had the opportunity to have you on as guest. I feel fortunate to have gotten to know you and hopefully be able to support you further, but really excited about this journey for you and hopefully for our audience who's been able to tap into that passion for just a moment. So thank you, Bob. We'll give you the final word here.
I was honored to be on this call. Thanks very much. And I love entrepreneurs. Anybody who takes that leap and goes in has got my vote of confidence. So go get them.
Love it. So again, everybody, please make the time. www.smoltap.com, SMOLTAP. Very excited for Bob and his future. And we appreciate everybody for making the time to join us today. Thank you. And
Thanks
good
very
day.
much.